and then G.I. Jane, her eyes for, shining blue, have been accentuated. I mean, clearly, as somebody that works in media and recognizes propaganda, this is off the chart. Then we have all the actual training manuals that law enforcement have given us, where it's all about Ron Paul, conservatives, libertarians, gun owners, patriots. And then they make it about being white, because they say, and these people are probably racist. You see, so which then makes it racial. And so that's how they're always injecting this, and, talking about McVeigh and Elohim City and the Oklahoma City bombing, but never getting into the fact that those were staged events. Here's part of Paul Watson's article, and we'll come back with the rest of the video and my analysis of it. DHS video characterizes white Americans as most likely terrorist. Big Sis Fear campaign continues, but Americans are just as likely to be killed by peanut allergies than they are in terrorist attacks. A new promotional video released by the Department of Homeland Security characterizes white middle-class Americans as the most likely terrorist. As Big Sis continues its relentless drive, we should add some articles where they talk about white al-Qaeda, the next threat. We know what this is also because of the past scripting. As Big Sis continues its relentless drive to cement the myth that mad bombers are hiding around every corner, when in reality Americans are just as likely to be killed by lightning strikes or peanut allergies. The video is part of a Homeland Security $10 million See Something, Say Something program that encourages Americans to report suspicious activity, which in every case throughout history has been a trait of oppressive dictatorial regimes. It's all about not trusting your fellow citizens, only trusting the big mommy government who's on record staging the terror attacks. In the course of a 10-minute clip, a myriad of different behavior and characterized as terrorism, including opposing surveillance. Oh, yeah, people that don't like being surveilled. Using a video camera. That's why cops come in your own yard and say you can't videotape them. Talking to police officers. Yeah, you don't talk to the godlike government. Wearing hoodies, driving vans, writing on a piece of paper, and using a cell phone recording application. And that's in manuals we got 5 years ago. The feds put out in the state of Texas. It said, having a cell phone, wearing blue jeans. I saw an AP article where it said, don't just trust that priest or that woman with a baby carriage. They may be the terrorist. It's about everybody's a terrorist. First, they start with the unpopular Muslims. Then they move on to blacks in America. Then they move on to the whiteys. Continuing here. Despite encouraging viewers not to pay attention to a person's race in determining whether or not they may be a terrorist, almost all the scenarios in the clip proceed to portray white people as the most likely terrorist. They show like one 9/11 hijacker. Bizarrely, nearly every single one of the patriotic Americans who reports on their fellow citizens is either black, Arab, or Asian. Again, this is all heavily scripted. They decide all of this stuff beforehand. Imagine if the video portrayed every terrorist as an Arab and every patriotic snoop is white, there'd be an outcry, and rightly so. But this strange reversal must have been deliberate on the part of the DHS. But why? Is this merely political correctness taken to the extreme, or is this something deeper at work? Well, we have all the training manuals. I'm going to finish up with this article, and then I'm going to go to a lot more of the clip, but it just goes on and on and on. This is everything we predicted, everything we told you was going to happen. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We have warned of this for years, that first, governments throughout history get rid of the country's liberties and freedoms by going after an unpopular minority group. Hitler, it was the Jews, communists, stuff like that. Here, it was the Muslims. The system stages the events, provocateurs, nutcases. It's a whole grab bag of different types of provocateur terror. Then they build the architecture of the police state for the general public. So they have white audiences where they say, we're going after the brown people. Then they go to the brown audiences and they say, we're going after the white people. And that's what this nearly 10-minute Department of Homeland Security video does. But it's worse than that. We have all the different training manuals sent to us by police and military over the years that we've published and have made national news. Homeland Security, MIAC, the list goes on. And in the training, over 90% is for what? Remember a few years ago, veterans seen as the #1 terror threat returning home? Remember a few months ago, okay, finally Congress voted for health care for the military, police, and fire veterans in 9/11, but you got to go through a terror database every time you get your health care? They're setting that precedent. Ron Paul supporters, Bob Barr supporters, people that like America, freedom to fascism, people that like Alex Jones. This is in the different manuals. And then they say these groups are connected to racism. So they make it about being white by saying, oh, they're connected to white supremacists when there's no connection. Meanwhile, Hal Turner, one of the top Nazis, it turns out in federal court, high-level FBI operative for decades, working, of course, with Sean Hannity. That came out. Just look up Hal Turner, Sean Hannity. Very bizarre. These people are operatives. By the way, that's in the news today, that they ran black op intelligence systems. London Telegraph reports that News Corps, its division in England, was running black op intelligence operations, and that their reporters were basically private contractor agents working with MI6. Of course they are, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know about Operation Mockingbird here in the United States? I mean, we're in deep, 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 deep trouble. And so they branded the war on terror with, we're taking the rights away, but we're only going to enforce it on the evil Muslims, in quotes. Now it's, oh my gosh, the white Al-Qaeda. And in every one of the scenarios, except one, in a 10-minute video, it's, quote, minorities, Asians, blacks, Hispanics, reporting on the evil whites. And it just goes on and on and on. Despite encouraging viewers not to pay attention to the person's race and determining whether or not they may be a terrorist, almost all the scenarios in the clip proceed to portray white people as the most likely terrorists. Bizarrely, nearly every single one of the patriotic Americans who reports on their fellow citizens is either black, Asian, or Arab. Imagine if the video had portrayed every terrorist as an Arab and every patriotic snoop as white. There'd be an outcry, and rightly so. But this strange reversal must have been deliberate on the part of the DHS. But why? Is this merely political correctness taken to an extreme, or is it something deeper at work? And then he goes to the proof that it's absolutely what's been going on behind the scenes. So they're now shifting it onto the American people. DHS checkpoints, Homeland Security, TSA running wild. This is the total takeover. And it's meant to make all of us not trust each other and divide and conquer and only trust the nanny state. Don't trust other Walmart shoppers. The telescreens say only trust Big Sis, who, of course, helped get the underwear bomber on the plane on record and who helped ship the guns into Mexico, and to blame the Second Amendment. But she's good, though. Continuing here, this has to do with the color of a person's skin and everything to do. This has little to do with the color of a person's skin and everything to do with the fact that white middle-class Americans are the biggest roadblock when it comes to Big Sis expanding its control over every facet of society. Well, now they're just tackling the big egg. It's plain to see that very little of the budget for this video went towards paying for decent actors, but perhaps it's fitting that the participants were about as believable as Santa and his elves, because the notion that terrorists are hovering around every underground parking lot waiting to blow up federal buildings is demonstrably false. Actually, when Jane Graham up in the HUD building saw McVeigh and other feds planting bombs and warned people, they didn't want to hear about it in Oklahoma City. As Ohio University John Mueller has documented, the likelihood of actually being a victim of terrorism is infinitesimally small and only highlights how much threats are hyperbolically exaggerated for political purposes. Figures collected by Mueller clearly show that Americans are just as likely to be killed by lightning strikes, accidents, by running into deer, or severe allergic reactions to peanuts. But the facts don't matter for a federal agency whose primary function is to manufacture fear, as former head of Homeland Security Governor Ridge admitted he was ordered to do. See, we have all the facts here. To keep Americans under control and submissive to the fact that their economic futures and their constitutional rights are being torn to shreds by their own government, while it points to a contrived outside threat as a convenient distraction. At its core, the video was filled with scenes of ordinary citizens spying on each other and alerting the authorities to their compatriots' suspicious deeds, writes Simon Black. In my favorite scene, a woman calls the police after snooping over the shoulder of a young man typing away on his smartphone. Black notes that such videos are solely aimed at reinforcing ignorance, hate, and fear for those who still live in darkness and are completely unaware of the real agenda behind Homeland Security's see something, say something charade. By the way, I'm going to call Watson during the break, and during that part about the feds issuing terror alerts to create artificial fear and make you love them and not love your neighbor, I'm going to have him add a link to Ridge admitting that. I think we need to even document that more for folks. No matter where you look, from East Germany to Communist Russia to Nazi Germany, historically governments who encourage their own citizens to report on each other do so not out of a genuine safety concerns or presumed benefits to security, but in order to create an authoritarian police state that coerces the people into policing each other's behavior and thoughts, and to create a big chilling effect as well. I better not speak out about freedom. You know, my neighbor will call Homeland Security on me. Well, let them. They're the terrorists anyways. Let's just get it out in the open. We all know you blew up the towers, you murdering military-industrial complex, banker-owned scum. As Robert Gelante of Florida State University has highlighted, Germans under Hitler denounced their neighbors and friends not because they genuinely believed them to be a security threat, but because they expected to selfishly benefit from doing so, both financially and socially and psychologically, via a Pavlovian need to be rewarded by their masters for their obedience. And that's how now you hear ads about report if your boss is pirating software. Report if your neighbor's spanking their kid, what's not even legal. Report people who are homeschooling. All of this is about getting social reward or feeling like you've been patted on the head. In fact, I didn't get into it, but will you guys re-pull the study from yesterday, big international and major U.S. university study in concert that found that people will say a barn door is blue if authority figures tell them it's blue, even if the barn door is red. And that's what, they have different TV shows illustrating this, how peer pressure works. And so people relish calling and tattling on their neighbors. They get a thrill like the authority loves them. Any free society abhors telling on somebody, even if what somebody's doing is wrong. In the old days, you would just take care of it yourself. I mean, you know, only the very worst stuff would be reported because people knew how dangerous a snitch society was. And it goes on through the rest of this. I mean, this is just classical tyranny. Let's go ahead and start getting into the rest of the video as I analyze it here. PrisonPlanet.tv viewers can see it, but we're here critiquing this taxpayer-paid-for propaganda. We have the video posted up at Infowars.com in our articles. Let's continue. You got the black guy calling in the evil white people, and then it cuts to a bunch of shots of news articles of white terrorists in every case, mentally ill provocateurs, or purely staged government ops like McVeigh. It has animated blue eyes shining. Oh, my gosh, the white devil's going to get you. Here it is.
We're building all 3rd and J Streets.
Don't worry, Homeland Security's on it.
It's not easy to put all the pieces together, and we don't expect you to. That's the job of law enforcement and intelligence analysts.
I forgot to point this out. You've got one of the federal and local top police analysts predicting future terror threats, Mr. Farrell, over in England, when he found out it was the government behind 7/7, and he said the new threat, and he brought up that other cases of where it was admitted with the British government had staged terror, they fired him. So, see, all they want is little dumbed-down control freaks work. I've tried on air to call Homeland Security to report terror over and over again, and the numbers don't work or nobody answers. It's all fake. It's all fake. They use the NSA to spy on people, so in case you find out the government's about to stage a terror attack, or a corporation is, to get naked body scanners in, or whatever the case is, so they can use NSA spying to make sure police don't get alerted and that they can go forward with the bombing. Let's continue with the video.
But Homeland Security is a shared effort and responsibility for each of us. When you see things that just don't seem right, that seem somehow out of the ordinary, reporting what you've observed can be invaluable to the work of
There's
law
one good white guy reporting on the other evil whitey.
Shared effort. Acts of terrorism against the United States can be large or small, and we've all seen their horrific images on television or in
Jihad Jane with glowing blue eyes.
But terrorist acts don't happen spontaneously.
Oh, one hijacker.
Many require some form of planning.
Times Square. Joe Stack.
Before they strike, many terrorists watch and study their targets.
Yeah, don't videotape.
Gather information.
Oh, they're videotaping cops. Don't worry, that cop will get them.
Test security.
Yeah, don't videotape TSA grabbing your children.
Acquire funds and supplies, often through criminal activities. And rehearse or walk through their plans.